Well, this is attempt number 2 to record the video about the professional paper, and hopefully my audio is working this time. It is Monday morning about 10 o'clock. I'm at home in my office slash craft room where I record most of my videos, and what I want to try to do in this video that will hopefully be fairly brief is to go over the instructions to really clarify what I'm looking for in pieces of the paper, and then look at the grading rubric, which is really generic. It's designed to really hopefully help you get a good grade right out of the gate. So let me begin by sharing my screen and opening up the instructions. Let's click on that and share. And then you may be hearing my child in the background through the room there. We'll just kind of ignore that as best we can. The point of this paper is twofold. Number one, it is to get you a little bit more comfortable with somebody, hopefully in the HR department where you work, so that in the future you've got a relationship built and you can go to them when you have questions and things. But number two, to build a foundation for the next paper, which is going to be exploring a particular issue that person is dealing with. A couple of things here real quick. It's not supposed to be more than maybe about 3 pages. It's not a tremendous paper, and it's not going to have any kind of research through Galileo or SHRM or anything like that. It's just a recap of an interview that you have with your HR person. No more than 3 pages in total. A couple of specifics in terms of the formatting, Calibri font. If you're not familiar with that, you type what you want to. Then you can go up here and you can type. You can set it to Calibri, and you can set it to 11 point. It should look like that when you're done. And then the spacing at 1.5. This particular icon here allows you to choose 1.5. There you go. Hopefully that makes it easy to get the setting. The settings or the setup right. 4 main sections in your paper. The first, once you've decided on who you want to talk with, maybe it is somebody at the HR department where you work, maybe you work in HR, so you go and talk to your boss. If you're not working right now, if you know somebody in HR, see if you can talk to them. Maybe if you're not working right now, your spouse's company, a friend's company, you just basically, to set this up, want to get in touch with somebody in HR and say, hey, I am working on a class in my MBA program that deals with human resources, and one of the first assignments is to interview somebody who works in human resources. I was wondering if sometime over the next couple of weeks you'd have time to either over the phone or in person, whatever's most comfortable to you, to sit down with me and talk for 30 minutes or an hour maybe. And if that's challenging with your schedule, maybe once a week for the next 3 or 4 weeks we could meet for 15 minutes and ask a few questions, whatever's convenient for you. And then after we've had this interview, I'm supposed to kind of think about what I've learned from you and write a short little paper, which leads to another paper later on down the road. That might be able to get you in the door with somebody. And usually an HR person, if you approach them and say, I'm trying to learn more about HR and what you do so that I can gain a deeper appreciation of HR and how it benefits the company, most HR folks, no matter how busy they are, will say, man, I appreciate you doing that. And either I don't have time, but I can put you in touch with somebody who could help you, or they'll say, yeah, I'd be glad to help you. So hopefully it'll go smoothly. The first part of the paper is the background or the setup information, and I'm looking for a little bit of information about the company, their HR department, and that person that you're interviewing. So the company, just a sentence or two, the name of the company, where they are, if they've got multiple locations, they're in manufacturing or they're in healthcare or whatever the industry is. They're about 30 years old. They're about 3 years old. Overall, the company has 400 employees, 20 employees, 10,000 employees, whatever. But just a couple of sentences, just basic information about the company itself. Then the HR department. This company has 4 different locations. Each location has its own little miniature HR, but there's a corporate HR, or maybe this particular company is kind of small and they have a small HR department. How many people are in that department? At each location, there's typically 4 or 5. Corporate-wide, there's 12. This company is small and they only have 3. Tell me a little bit about that HR department. Do they have people in specific roles? They probably got a director or a VP or something, but then do they have somebody over compensation? Do they have somebody over employee relations, or does everybody kind of do a little bit of everything? So are they generic roles, or are they specialized roles? And then what are the main functions that this HR department really handles? And you'll find, well, I guess you won't, because you won't see everybody else's paper, but I'll see that there's a wide variety of roles that HR people play. Now, a lot of organizations, everybody kind of does whatever has to be done at the moment, but in other organizations that are larger, somebody does nothing but annual reviews and compensation and benefits and things like that. So once you've given me information about the company itself and the overall HR structure, then get into this person and tell me, first of all, what brought them to where they are today? What's their name? What kind of education, degrees, schools they attended, topics they studied, that sort of thing. And at some point, either they were told to do HR or they decided they want to do HR. But what was it that made them say yes when the opportunity arose? If they were in accounting and somebody said, we'd like for you to do this HR thing, what made them say yes? If they pursued HR intentionally, what caused them to go towards that field? Then a little bit in the present. What is their title right now? How long have they been in that title, in that role? How did they work through their company, assuming that they weren't hired into that role? How did they work into that position? So how have they progressed through the company? And what do they typically do? What kinds of things do they handle on a regular basis? The last part of this section is if they were recruiting somebody to HR, what would they say is the reason why HR is interesting, it's valuable, it's useful? What makes them passionate about HR? What is it that makes them want to go to work every day? And why do they think that HR has value to their organization? So that's a pretty good background here. It may be the overall, that may be 3/4 to a page long, just giving me the background. Hopefully you can kind of condense it down to about 3/4 of a page, because I want you to get into a little bit more of the conversation with this person through most of the paper. And that's just background right there. The second major section of the paper is what this person sees going on in HR, and it's 2 sections here. And this is just a little paragraph each. The question you'd want to ask is, what do you see going on in HR in other parts of the country right now that Georgia isn't, or wherever they happen to be, that Georgia or wherever they happen to be isn't necessarily dealing with yet? I see this going on in New England, or I see this going on in California, or wherever. If you happen to be in California, you guys are on the leading edge of some of these things. The second part of that is, what are we dealing with at our company? The challenges that we have that are probably a little different from the challenges that are going on nationally. So just kind of what HR looks like from their perspective as they look outwardly first, and then at the organization that they work for. Section number 3 is what they think is coming. And its chances are that some of the things that are going on nationally are coming to us, although they're not here yet. But there may be, nobody's really, in that part of the country or in that part of the world, they're talking about this, and that's eventually going to get here. But it could be that they say, nobody's really talking about this yet, but I have a feeling that we're going to be soon. That would be the trends outlook. So the paper kind of concludes with them going back to the organization state of HR and the challenges that they're dealing with now, and saying, well, give me a couple of examples of issues that you're allocating resources to now. We're trying to figure out how we're going to deal with a minimum wage increase, if that's dictated from Washington. We're struggling in our organization to make sure that our job descriptions are right, or we're really struggling with trying to make sure that there's pay equity among folks with similar titles, whatever it is. A couple of issues, you don't have to go into any depth on those issues, just to kind of identify what they are. That's really, as it notes here, one of the most important parts of the paper, because the next paper you do is going to be taking one of those issues and researching it in SHRM. Doesn't happen in this paper, but it will in the future. So get a couple of issues that you think you might be able to dig around in SHRM a little bit and play the consultant and find out some information about. So no header information. You don't have to do MLA, my name, your name, class name, date, Dr. Grimes, professional paper, all that stuff in the corner. Just on the very top line, type something like setup, and then go to line 2 and start typing. Try to make sure it's very clear when you change from company to HR department. You might have a separate paragraph every time you go, this is a paragraph, this is a paragraph, this is a paragraph, that's a paragraph, that's a paragraph. And then on the next available line, type state of HR. And then on the line below that, this is a paragraph, this is a paragraph. And then you'll have the heading of Trends Outlook, and then a couple of paragraphs, and then a heading that says issue and a couple of paragraphs. So don't give me a cover page. Don't give me any of that name, title, date, etc. Just start writing. But make sure that it's very, very clear when you change from one idea to the other. Even within this, you might say state of HR is your heading, and then say nationally, this person sees these things happening, blah, 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 blah. When it comes to the organization, here are the things that are important. So that I see the word national, I see the word organization, so forth, right? Related to that, this person's past is very interesting, blah, 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 blah. What this person does presently is blah, 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 blah. When it comes to recruiting new people, blah, 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 that makes it very obvious to me when you're talking about each section. I don't have to guess, and I don't have to hopefully guess wrong. All right, so I've talked through all of that. Let me close this and pull up the grading rubric here. As you see, it's very generic. Not even anything really specific. I'm just looking at, generally speaking, is this section, I'm looking section by section, is the setup section. That's the company, the HR structure, the background on the person. Have you written it in such a way that you've told me everything I need to know and I see no errors with it, no logic with it, whatever? That's a perfect paper, and that'll be 30 out of 30. If I see some little minor things, spelling or grammar or whatever, the content is not quite, I don't think that you really address this piece of it, but it's still kind of an A, that's going to be a 28. If it's generally, I think, a B, that's a 26. Same thing when you go to the state of HR. Very generic assessment here. It's perfect. You did everything I need you to do. You've developed ideas sufficiently. There's nothing wrong with it. Or generally speaking, it's an A. Generally speaking, I think it's about a B. Trends Outlook, same thing, nothing wrong with it, ABC. The issue, nothing wrong with it, ABC. And then the format, that takes into account all of those Calibri, 11, 1.5, those kinds of things. The heading, if there's nothing wrong with all that, should be an easy 10 points. And then grammar, spelling, and flow. And I understand some of you, English is probably not your first language, and you might want to get somebody who really speaks English extremely well, writes English well, to look over it and make suggestions on, you maybe put a comma there, you do this or that. That's the grading on this thing. I'm going to close that. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to my ugly face there. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what I'm looking for in this professional paper. And again, remember, twofold purpose. Number one, maybe most important, is if you don't have a lot of contact with HR right now and you kind of think of them as maybe the bad guy or the big bad scary guy, this helps you establish a relationship with one of them that will help you in the future. In the future, I would hope that when you've got a discipline issue with an employee, or you're trying to decide which of two potential employees to hire, or you're trying to decide which one of these folks really deserves a promotion, or I'm kind of torn on how to score this person on the appraisal, that instead of guessing or just 1, 2, 3, 4 ABC, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, that you'll pick up the phone and call this person in HR and say, hey, this is Mark. I've got a dilemma here. Have you got a minute? And you talk about it, and you start getting input from HR, who theoretically are the experts in these kinds of things. So that's point number one, is you build a relationship with somebody that will come back to help you later. Point number two is that you learn a little bit about the company that you work for and how they do things. And you start to understand how HR thinks when it comes to certain types of things. That's enough for now. Hopefully you know about the professional paper. If you have questions, go to the Ask Dr. Grimes discussion board, post a question out there. I'll try to answer it, or you can text me or email me. Anything that you ask me, if I think it's beneficial to the rest of the organization, the rest of the class, I'll post something out on the Ask Dr. Grimes discussion board so everybody knows. Looking forward to hearing about your interactions with the professionals in HR. Remember that as I record this video, this is not due for about a month. You don't certainly want to wait until the week beforehand. Go ahead and start making contact and start making plans. so that you got time to interview, think about it, right, go back, look at it a day later, go back, look at it a week later, make changes. Okay, that's it for now. Bye.